Open your eyes and experience grassroots at its best. An iron brew, a mince pie and 3 goals for a goal fest. Welcome to episode 25 of the Burnie podcast.
So in tonight's episode we're going to have a look at the last fortnight here at the Burnie. We're going to discuss some fundraising, and in the hot seat tonight we've got the man, the myth and the legend, Brian Smillie. So welcome to the podcast, Brian.
Cheers.
But first, the seniors weren't playing at the weekend. However, there have been a new signing made. We're delighted to announce the signing of Nick Mortimer from Edinburgh University. Nick's a versatile and talented player with great experience who will bolster the squad for our promotion push. Welcome to the Burnie, Nick. I was actually at the game where we played against Edinburgh Uni, and he was playing against us. And I do remember picking him out as one of the star players, so it's great to see him being able to attract some big talent.
I know it's good. I mean, when we're trying to get promotion, just need as many bodies and as much quality as possible, so that'll be good for the first team to bring somebody in. Especially as you said, he's a star player there, so that's good. What was your 2011s? How did they got on at the weekend?
Not so good. We went down a 5-1 defeat against Broxburn. We managed to keep it not too bad until half time, and then second half we just didn't show up.
Yeah.
It was a bit disappointing, to be honest with you. How about your 2009s?
We got put out a cup on penalties.
Again?
Aye. We were 3-1 up and went to 3-3. So
we 3-1 up in the first half, second half?
We went 3-1 up in the second half, so 1-1 at half time, so we went 3-1 up, gave away a penalty with like 5 minutes to go, and then penalty shootout. Wee bit like the last one actually, Scottish Cup quarter final, gave away a penalty the last 5. To be fair, we saved that one, but very similar.
That must be disappointing. So are you going to be practising penalties now in every training session, or?
It's just a lottery,
And that was going to be my next question. Do you actually need to, or is it just a lottery with penalties?
I think the boys should be able to hit a penalty, and if it doesn't go in, the keeper saves it. It's whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's a lottery. It just happens. So just need to hope that next time we're in a shootout, the luck goes our way.
Yeah,
definitely.
Okay, in other news, the girls under 10 Blacks are on the lookout for a new coach to help them develop as they compete in the East of Scotland League. They've also doing a sponsored walk across the Forth Road Bridge on Sunday the 26th of April. So they're raising money to help attend tournaments, enjoy a day out and buy some football equipment for training. Any contribution, big or small, would be hugely appreciated and will help support this amazing team. So please sponsor this fab bunch of girls. I'll put a QR code and stuff on the screen just now. Any donation will be superbly appreciated, and we hope to make some brilliant memories with that wee team.
Yep. So after some feedback from everybody, we've now reduced the price of our celebration night down to only £15. So we'll be celebrating this season's success with numerous awards being dished out to those who go above and beyond for the club, along with the awards for the first team and much more. So just a wee price reduction there.
Yes, that's right. Get in touch with Trevor or a member of the committee to get your tickets before they run out. And now Easter is only a week or so away. How many spaces have you got left at your Easter camp, Jared?
I've got 12 left. So
12 left?
Aye, so
filling up nicely.
Filling up, so I'm hoping when everyone gets paid they'll just book a child in for the camp, aye. But no, we've got 12 spaces left there, so hoping just to get that filled and we'll have a good wee week at the camp, definitely.
Yeah, that'll be good, excellent. So do get in touch this Easter. Remember, it's actually much cheaper than childcare, as we pointed out last weekend.
Cheap.
Now, before we get our guest on, because we're eagerly waiting to get this on, we've got a word from our sponsor. In the hot seat tonight, we've got Vice President of the club, Brian Smillie. Brian is a former player, captain and assistant manager of the side, and is also responsible for the development needs of the coaches associated with the community club. Brian also coaches some of the younger age groups in the community setup and has been responsible for many of them, going on to play pro youth football with some of the bigger SPFL sides in the Central Belt. Welcome to the podcast, Brian.
Cheers for having me.
So, Brian, for anyone listening who doesn't kind of know who you are but maybe knows the name, how would you sum up your journey with Blackburn United?
I sum up my journey. I started as a kid, so many years ago, a wee boy. Just I used to be Blackburn Centre. We played with at the time. There was a guy called Tam Shaw that used to run all the teams back then. So that was my first introduction really to Blackburn, and then I moved away to different teams. Played with some other teams. I ended up at Livingston United and stuff like that. Pumferston. All teams that done really, really well. And then eventually I was back at Blackburn maybe, I don't know, 14, 15, maybe away again, and then came back to play for the junior side after about 3 years of them asking me. So eventually I decided I'd played with Falthouse and West Calder, and I had a great time there at West Calder, and we weren't a great side by any means, but we were a right good bunch of boys, and I really enjoyed it up there. But I thought it was time to come back and play for the sort of hometown, and I kind of never looked back for then. So that was my kind of footballing start, I feel like, with them. Pretty much, I think after the first 3 or 4 months, a few of the older senior players were kind of moving on, stepping aside and stuff like that, and I became captain of the club, and I was that until I sort of retired and through injury. A couple of times in that wee spell, myself and Mark Campbell had taken over as a temporary charge when a manager had moved on and stuff like that. So I think we'd done that twice during my playing time, and we seen it maybe like a League Cup section that before a new manager came in, so like 6-7 games. And I think we'd done that twice along with Tony Gribben, and then eventually they came and asked me and Mark to take the team, but at that time I'd had a few injuries and I was just struggling to get fit, and so I just started concentrating on coaching. So coaching as the assistant manager, but I was also me and Mark were taking the 1993 age group, so Danny Campbell's of the world and stuff like that, when they were 7-8 year old. So that's how long I've been coaching for, because Danny must be about 105 by now.
Aye, nice. So, keeps getting a 1-year extension every year.
Aye, so
world record.
So it's been a long time involved with the club in different roles, and on the kind of community board and that type of thing. So everything that you see up there, it was never like that when I was a young boy playing. It was just grass fields, it was the old ash pitch and stuff like that. We had the old changing rooms, and we've came a long way as a club, and it makes you really proud to be part of that.
Definitely. So why then? So after you've been playing and coaching, why get involved behind the scenes for so long and continue to move up and do more?
So I think like that's always been in me with football. Do you know what I mean? I've as far as I can remember, I played football at the grass out the front of my house, looks right down onto the pitch. So we used to play on where the swing park is and that now, with hay jumpers for goalposts and stuff like that. We wouldn't even make it down to the pitch. That's where we would play, or we would play up at Murrayfield, because it was a smaller pitch and it had sets of goals up there, so you maybe had 15 aside and stuff like that up there. So football's just always been the thing I've loved, and so it just made, I was always going to day coaching and be part of sort of a management team and stuff like that somewhere along the line when my football sort of career finished. So it came a wee bit sooner than what I would have liked, but that's what it is. You just have to deal with it and move on. But my brothers played, and my dad played. He's in some of the pictures that are up in the clubhouse and that as well. He played with like New Blackburn Athletic and stuff like that as well, and so it's always been in our family. So I was just kind of natural progression, to be honest. That's about it.
Do you consider, like you say, you've had so many roles at the club, do you consider that as like your journey as one long chapter or lots of different little lives?
Aye, I think it is chopped up into sort of smaller pieces, to be honest, because when you're playing and you love it, and that's what you want to do every week. You just want to play football, and you're absolutely buzzing to go to training and stuff like that. I remember way back when we played with, it was Blackburn Centre, and we got new strips, and it was like the Argentina strip, and it was like you just loved it, and that was a great part then. I can take you to a part in 2013 when we got a new pavilion built, and like that's the sort of pinnacle for me being involved in that. You know, it was a good 10 years of hard work, try to, you know, going to meetings and, you know, working with the SFA, Sport Scotland, all these sort of things, and obviously the people in our community, Ian McGinty, Jim Johnson, Mark Campbell and stuff like that. You know, it was a real, you know, slog to get to where we are. So every time I look at that facility up there, that fills you with a bit of pride. But there's all different steps in it, and it's a different step for me now. You know, being on committees and coaching the 20s and stuff like that. That's another part that's of the journey that's just different. So it's all into different wee pieces, I guess, and, you know, different stages of your life. So it's been a huge part of my life, and, you know, it always will be.
And how proud are you of being for being a captain at Blackburn? So when you are playing, how proud did that make you, knowing that, you know, you had family involved and your friends have been involved?
Aye.
So being the captain, that must have been quite a big moment.
Aye, I mean, listen, you don't really think about it at the time and stuff like that. If you know, I get made the captain of the sort of old junior side, if you like, pretty quickly. But I'd been the captain at like West Calder and stuff like that. I was the captain at Punferston. I was, you know, the captain at the younger age teams. It's just something that I've always done, and I think that, you know, somebody somewhere recognises that leadership skills there somewhere along it, or just I'm a bit of a moan on the football park. That's maybe what it was, that I never stopped talking when I was on there. So probably best just give me the armband to make it a wee bit more official. But nah, it's great, and I'll be honest, there was times where I never ever really wanted to come back and play with Blackburn at the time, and stuff like that when I was away playing in other places. But ultimately I'm glad I did, and I got a couple of years at least under my belt playing for my hometown club and stuff like that. Aye, so aye, listen, it's all great memories and proud. I don't think it's defined with just being like a captain and stuff like that. I think it's just being part of your hometown and stuff like that you really love.
Aye, proud of that.
Aye.
So when you were captain, what type of captain were you? Did you have to go between the two, like arm round the shoulder type, or more no nonsense, which I would kind of expect?
Aye, I think people will have a few different names for it, to be honest. So, you know, I played centre back, believe it or not, so I was like a sweeper and always had, you know, a big brute in front of me, like, you know, Finn Brogan's dad, Sean, used to play in front of me and stuff like that. So I had a 6'6" there to go and header the ball, and I just picked up the bits behind. But I always remember, you know, if you know, Mark Campbell would be at the top end, and if he missed a chance, I'm shouting the length of the pitch to slaughter him for it. And then if we conceded a goal, he was shouting back the length of the pitch to slaughter me and stuff like that. But being a captain is, you know, everybody should try and be a captain on the pitch, you know, offering support and help to their colleagues and stuff like that. I guess for me it was about trying to get the best out of people, but sometimes I wasn't great at that. You know, it was a wee bit argumentative, and I would say I demanded a lot in that, because I demanded that out myself.
Aye.
So I wouldn't actually, you know, expect anybody to do anything that I couldn't do. You know, so that was really it. I just tried to be as supportive as possible, but sometimes it would manifest itself in a different sort of way.
And where did that come from? That sort of like, you know, aggressiveness as a captain. Not so much like aggressiveness as in like you're mean, just like that proper sort of like assertive, like that sort of passion. There was like a turning point where you just got angry at football at one moment and from there on out it was just...
No, I just think, you know, I went to Livingston United at like 7-year-old, and I was playing under 11 football, and you were playing 11-a-sides with a lot of good players. So like, you know, that team I had is, you know, the coach was a guy called Robin Gibson, and he's fantastic. He's still involved at Rangers and that at the moment, but we had unbelievable players that played with us, and I think I was probably the youngest, and it was either sink or swim. So
you had to.
But so you have to step up, and the boys would have seen, you know, ability wise I was decent, but if you didn't sort of react and do things the right way. So I think playing with older boys who were 2, 3, 4 years older than me at times, that kind of brings out a persona in you that you know, well, if it's in you it'll bring it out, and if it's not it won't. So the captaincy and chatting and stuff like that's not forever. You hear it about, you know, different captains and stuff like that do things in a certain fashion. Some are leaders, some are talkers, some, you know, don't say much. It's just their actions that people see and makes them a captain. So it kind of comes in all shapes and sizes, I guess.
Aye. So who were the biggest characters in the dressing room back in the day?
Back in the day, we had great dressing rooms at Blackburn, you know.
Like, I think that's something that Blackburn seem to be famous for, is like the dressing room banners. Like
we had some great boys. You had the Donnellys, Chrissy and Paddy Donnelly. They were, you know, first at training, first at nights out, and last to leave a night out. And you know, that whole group. There was a lot of boys for the Falkirk area at the time. The previous manager was for the Falkirk area, so there was a lot of boys for that way. And you know, the boys, it was tremendous. My wee mate Eddie Mangan, who's in Hong Kong, he works with a Premier League team in Hong Kong. Eddie was fantastic. He was for Edinburgh, but would never miss a night out and stuff like that. Loved it, but totally dedicated to their football. You know, they were there on time. They trained hard. They worked hard. We had a few of the boys kind of similar ages with me. Was Spenny, Steph McCarthy and stuff like Alan Brown. All the boys. It was just we had a right good bunch. But at one point, Mickey Lynch was our manager, and we had a lot of young boys for Blackburn. So we had Andy Heaps and Darren Malloy, Craig Lamb. We had Anthony Greaves for a wee time and stuff like that. So we had a lot of boys that were, you know, it was great, real camaraderie, and boys that all looked after each other and stuff like that, you know. When the going get tough and stuff like that, the boys could get going as well. So you knew people had your back.
Aye. So
really, really good characters. We brought a couple of boys that I used to play with and stuff like that. So a couple of mates, Andy Hall, Brian Savage, Paddy Quinn, all boys that we brought for the other teams. Once me and Mark started to take over, and we just keep, you know, bringing big characters in who you know you could rely on and stuff like that, and it was great. So we had a right good bunch. And early years I was there was never a dressing room that I probably didn't like. You know, there was, it grew and it developed, and it just changed, but it stayed the same, if you know what I mean.
Aye, definitely. And there's like one moment that sticks with you, you know, for that dressing room, like a particular game maybe.
So when Airdrie bought our Clydebank got demoted into the sort of the junior leagues, and the first year they were in the junior league, we played them in the Scottish Cup. So obviously we had a lot of boys for Airdrie and stuff like that. So Airdrie were basically gone bust, Clydebank were gone bust. I can't remember the full story, but sort of Airdrie took our Clydebank, and Clydebank were no more, and Airdrie stayed in the sort of the Scottish League, if you like. So they had, you know, a good few, maybe 100 fans through at Blackburn and stuff like that, and we drew one each at Blackburn. I actually scored with a header to get the equaliser, which I don't know how many goals I actually scored for Blackburn, but it wasn't many. And so I actually scored, so we took it to a replay through at Yoker, and there was about 400-500 people there, and it was heavy duty. Basically, we were under the cosh for quite a bit yet, but we ended up coming away with a 4-3 victory in extra time, and we knocked them out the Scottish Cup their very first year that they were back in. And I think that whole game sort of epitomised what we were like as a team. Under the cosh, we could take it, we would fight back, we got some more, we would fight back again, and eventually, you know, you had that will, but you also had, you know, a bit of quality and stuff like that. I remember, I think the keeper had duffed a clearance and it fell to Big Lee Docherty about the centre circle, and we're all just shouting, hit it, and he hit it and it fired into the net, empty sort of net, and like we just killed about the next 5 minutes in the corner, all rolling about on top of each other, just celebrating, do you know what I mean? So, great boys and big characters, but good football players there.
Aye, definitely. Who was kind of one of your toughest opponents that you've come across as a player?
Like, just as an individual player?
Aye. Can you remember anything?
Okay, like...
or was there a particular team that was always tough?
No, I think there was always, you know, tough. My mate will want me to say Danny Rooney when we played under 21s and stuff like that. Danny was a real character and real tough opponent to play against, and so he was definitely one of them. But there was boys like, you know, Roddy Grant, played against Roddy Grant, who's got, you know, senior goals in every league in sort of Scotland. He was a St Johnstone sort of legend and stuff like that. Played with Lithgow Rose, and I mean, like, couldn't really run, didn't move that much, but you couldn't get near him, you know. And there was guys that, you know, I don't know their names and that really now, but I remember our first game in charge, me and Mark, we took the boys in the morning against Muirston, and we had a sandwich in the car and drove to play Burnie rig, and we were doing alright. We were 1-0 down at half time, and we thought, listen, we're really in this game. I think we'd made a mistake. We're really in this game, and we didn't know much about them because they were a team higher up in the division above us, I think, and they brought on a couple of subs at half time, and I remember one guy in particular, like, if you paused the play every time he took a touch of the ball, there wasn't a player within 10 yards of him. He was so good. And I remember them saying, like, he's been up senior and stuff like that, playing and stuff. And I can't remember the guy's name, but he was so good, and he's actually hit one for about 30 yards, and, you know, two goalkeepers wouldn't have saved it. It was so loads of good players out there, and probably that long ago since I played against them, I can't really remember all their names, but a few wee moments stick out in that. But we had a few good ones ourselves, you know what I mean? So, loads of good players at that level.
Do you think, like, see the sort of traits the teams had, like, you know, that sort of grit and determination you're talking about, is that what made them what they are, or would you think there was obviously that bit of quality in there as well, like you said?
Well, I think we could play when we had to. But when you knew you had to, back then it was different. Look at the pitches now, right? It's Astros, it's flat, it's quick. The boys look after themselves a lot better than we ever did back then playing, probably. But, you know, we were playing in some ploughed fields and stuff like that, and at times you just had to, you know, roll your sleeves up and get stuck in, and hopefully you done a bit more than the other team to go and win the game and stuff like that. I remember, like, going down to places like was it Haddington and stuff like that. There's one that sort of ran up the corner at the far side. I mean, it actually ran up to the corner flag like that. You weren't playing in nice flat surfaces and that. You got that once in a blue moon, do you know what I mean? But most of the time it was ploughed fields you were playing in.
Aye. So you've won several cups over the years. Which one stands out for you?
Which one stands out and why? I don't know. It's probably the first sort of league me and Mark won with the 1993 squad, because like that age group was tremendous. So you had the likes of Danny, who played for us. You had Fraser Spence, who was playing with Blackridge. You had James Mildren, who was playing with Faltus. You had Connor Robb, who coaches with me, playing with Muirston. Like quality teams, you know, it wasn't just a one horse race every time.
Right.
So the first 2 seasons at 13s, 14s, we came so close, but we get knocked out in all the semi-finals. I think we were second the first year and maybe third the second year. So the third year, we actually won it at under 15s. I think we won 2 doubles at 15s, 16s, can't remember. But I still remember Thomas McGlargigan scored versus Muirston to win the game 3-2, and that won us the league up at Muirston. And it was a wee sort of bittersweet moment, because there was a lot of people hoping that wasn't going to happen, but it sticks out for us. I think we were 2-0 up and went 2-2, a wee bit of panic setting in, and Thomas scored late on for us to win the game 3-2, and that essentially won us the league. So probably that one was a good one. And then I've got to say it, with the 2008s, you know, the first one that we won with Aim and stuff like that, my youngest boy plays in that team, so Evan, so, you know, sharing that moment with him was fantastic as well. And, you know, Gav, that helped us run the team, his boy Bailey played in there as well and stuff like that. So to have the wee moments is nice. And I've got that with Owen, my oldest boy. He kind of got a bad injury at 14 and that, so I never ever really got to take him any further and stuff like that. So aye.
And what does that sort of success do for a club like Blackburn United?
Listen, you just want the next team to say, we want that. You know, and you want the coaches to say, we want that. How'd you get there? You know, and it's about, like, don't be shy to ask. If you need a wee helping hand, it's fine to ask and stuff like that, because I've done it over the years. I'll always do it if I see people doing things and saying, what's that about? What are you doing there? Why are you thinking that and stuff? And I think it's about, you know, never ever, you know, stop trying to learn and change and adapt and stuff like that. So you win a trophy, you want it to have a knock-on effect, and you want it to inspire your boys to go into more, but you also want it to inspire, it might be the team younger than you, and, you know, things like that, because you don't want to be that team that's struggling. You want to be that team that's pushing and trying to win stuff.
Absolutely.
How much of the success of these cups do you think comes down to talent, and how much does it come down to the actual standards or the mentality of the boys?
Aye, but listen, obviously you have to have a bit of talent. You have to have, if you're going to go and do well in the game and try and win trophies and stuff like that, then obviously there needs to be an element of talent there and stuff like that. But I think, you know, if you set the standards and if you know, push the boys and, you know, demand that wee bit more and they want to go away, then it's a winning combination. You know, I think if you're trying to set standards up here and, you know, thinking that the talent's up there when it's no, actually it's maybe down here and stuff like that, there's a big gap to try and fill there. So it's about how you do that. So I always say, you know, we struggled to recruit, you know, back in the day, even with back to the 1993s, we brought in, you know, 2 players for the year we won the league, and they came from Muirston B team. You know, Big Fraser Clarkson and Billy McGuigan, that was really the only ones that came in. I think we might have actually got the twins for Blackridge who maybe they came in that year as well, actually. But we really struggled to recruit and get players in, so it was about us trying to drive them on with knowing that they had a good amount of talent, but were they as good as some of the other teams? Maybe no, but if you can give them that wee bit extra organisation and that wee bit more belief, then it might just take you out of the line.
Yeah, no, definitely. And obviously, you know, you're someone who, you know, you've already mentioned in the podcast so far, like standards, like grit, drive, a wee bit of talent and stuff. So for someone who had all those sort of factors, how hard was it to step away from playing with your injury?
It was brutal, to be honest, because I still remember the day I got injured and stuff, and it was nothing. It was a knock in the sort of front of the knee, and I thought it was just a stud in the knee and stuff like that, but it turned out to be a cruciate. And then I was out for about a year with it. I knew I was struggling. struggling through training, and the manager, guy called John Jimison at the time, was telling me just do your own warm up and stuff like that, and just get yourself ready, because I was actually just really struggling, and he managed to get me a physio, and I was diagnosed, and that was me out for a year. I kept coming back, and my Achilles would go or something else and that, and I knew myself. I'd started coaching the kids by then as well, and I was like, do you know what, this is it for me. I couldn't get to the standard that I wanted to play it, and I would be the first to say to other people, you need to give us more and stuff like that, and if I wasn't doing it, then I couldn't do it. So it was a tough decision, but I still had football because I was coaching. Do you know what I mean? I was probably out more because I was coaching so many different things at the time, so I was probably doing actually more football than what I was doing when I was playing. So
did you find that doing the coaching and stuff, that kept you fit still, or do you do other things to try and keep you fit? Did you find any other sports to
Nah, I've never ever really participated in too many other sports and stuff like that. You kept yourself fit to play football. Really, that was the thing for me, and there wasn't much else that I really focused on. Do you know what I mean? I just wanted to play football and be involved in football and stuff like that. So and it was tough. You started to hit towards your 30s and that, and you don't then shift the weight as quickly as you would like. And if you're not training hard 2 nights a week, because we used to nickname ourselves Blackburn Harriers, because we were like a running club on a Monday. It was, Mickey would have you up Poor Wives Brae and stuff like that, and house sprints and the stairs at Tesco and all that, and then just tell you, right, jog back to the park and stuff like that. It was brutal. So you kind of drop that, and like I say, with injury and stuff like that, it was just, it was horrible. It was a kind of, you didn't realise at the time, to be honest, how much you're missing.
Aye.
Do you know what I mean?
And when you did hang up the boots, what was it you missed the most? Is it like, the dressing room, just the game, whatever it was?
Just playing football, because I'm a frustrated person watching football. You know what I mean? My boys are never done telling me to shut up when we're watching a game and stuff like that. And even at the side of the pitch, because it's just the way I played and the way I am with it and stuff like that, I always want more, and it's like, good's good, but I want better and stuff like that at times, and it can be detrimental. I get it, but I was still in the dressing room, in all honesty, because I was doing the kids and the all junior team at the same time, so I was still in the dressing room. I didn't really miss anything like that, but it was more about not actually going out into the park on a Saturday and playing.
You walk out, all the boys go on, you walk to the dugout.
And I played with them all. Do you know what I mean? So then it was difficult trying to coach them as well, because they were my teammates a few weeks prior, and then I become the assistant manager, and me and Mark just ran it side by side. You know what I mean? Both of us played with all the guys, and so it was a tough transition, to be honest, but you just have to get on with it.
Aye. No, the football doesn't wait a boot for you, so you just need to just...
Well, it's not like we were dropping millions in a pay packet or anything and not playing it. So
did you find your no-nonsense approach became even stronger when you moved into the coaching side?
Aye, probably. Aye, and I think, like I say, it's how I am and who I am at times, but it's, I totally accept sometimes that it's not always the right way. So, some players might not respond to it and stuff like that, so you have to find a way to get them to respond. So I think as you get a wee bit older, you get a wee bit wiser, and realise there's different approaches that you can take and stuff like that. So it's one of the ones where I don't regret it. You just have to deal with it and move on.
Aye. And did you see the stuff maybe you learned as a captain? Is that what you did take into being a coach? Just all the stuff that you'd have on the field, you're just taking it straight off?
I think just as a person, to be honest, it's captain's a role in a team, but if you're kind of that way inclined that you want to do well in everything that you do, which I do, family life and my work and stuff like that, I've always tried to do the best that I can. So That's what you do. It's probably something that's in you a wee bit. Got that, you know, from my mum. She was somebody that, you know, kind of inspired me. So I always, you know, kind of got her values and stuff like that. That's taught to you as a kid, and that's how you sort of progress through your adulthood, and hopefully I pass that on to my boys and my 2 wee granddaughters that I've got now. So it's.
Are you going to pass down the torch of like the being mental about Blackburn just in the club many years, or?
I don't know if they'll be like that at all. They might. The boys might. Listen, they love it. They both played at Blackburn. That's where it started for them. And you know, Evan's finishing with the 18s this year. He's been a one club man up to now and stuff like that. Owen went away and played at Livingston and, until he got injured and stuff like that. So it was a wee bit different but he came back to play with Blackburn, finished with under 20s and stuff like that. So and obviously I keep my the wee granddaughters are live in Edinburgh, but as soon as they're ready for the Pandas, I'll be up there.
Definitely.
Good. So you then became one of the community club's coaching coordinator. What exactly did that role involve?
Just really, you know, trying to progress the club through the SFA standards that they set. So you had that community awards, legacy and stuff like that. Jim Johnson had came to me at one point, and you know he'd made great strides with it. So when we pulled everything together, all the different Blackburn Centre, and we had Blackburn Bairns and all these different teams, and we were pulling it all to come under the one umbrella. You know, Blackburn United under the all junior team, which is the first team now and stuff like that. Sort of Jim and Ian McGinty had been pushing things on, and you know, Mark says to me, listen, do you want to start coaching with me, with these boys? We need 2 coaches because half of them are one age and half are the other age. So me and Mark took the younger ones, and Jim and Michael took the older ones and stuff like that. And so as part of that format that the SFA were introducing for community clubs, you had to have these sort of roles in place. So to meet all these different criteria to make these standards, you had to start doing specific things. So I was pushing people through their coaching badges, and you know helping, going and taking a session for them, giving them ideas, and you know making sure that everybody had kit and enough footballs and bibs and cones, and you just mucked in, so it was it sounds a grand sort of title and stuff like that, but it was a necessity. So Jim had asked me, you know, his laugh kind of took this as far as I can you go and start to do the next bit? So that's what happened, and kind of progressed that all the way through to getting the Legacy Award and stuff like that, where I went and done a presentation on behalf of the club through at Peffermill to be awarded the sort of legacy status and stuff like that. So I'm proud of all that sort of part in the background. We've all worked hard. There's a lot of boys, you know, Davy Jones and Jim and Mark and Ian and guys like Graham and Fiona McGinty, and all these people of Brian Meakin, Andy Meakins, Jamie McCormick, all these people. I don't want to miss them out. I was trying to miss one out, but I better say his name. Trevor. Trevor. You know, all these guys are all party, and obviously, you know, being sort of well sponsored by the likes of Jamie at Red House Fencing and obviously Purdy's as well. It's massive. You've no idea the impact that it makes on a wee community club like yours. So it's huge. Do you know what I mean? So titles and stuff like that, really about me trying to give back to a community that when I was growing up didn't have very much, and you know, you could go down the wrong routes and stuff like that so pretty easily, and it was about me just trying to give a wee bit back to football that, you know, I love, and obviously no better place to do it than on my doorstep.
Absolutely, 100%. And I'm correct in saying you were one of the people responsible for building the pathway through the club. So where did you sort of see the gaps, and what did you see that was the problems that you had to go in and fix?
So it's part of, what the SFA do. It's that whole, moving up through different award levels that you need to have so much. So one of our biggest issues was having a girls section. So I managed to get a couple of students from West Lothian College to come and start to take the girls section, and I would just kind of help mentor them. And we just tried to get us on. It was a real struggle. It was a real struggle trying to get girls, but you needed that to hit the top sort of level with the SFA sort of award system that they had in place. So you needed girls teams in place and stuff like that, and it wasn't something that we'd ever done at Blackburn, or hadn't done for a long time. So that was a real struggle trying to get that going, and it was probably the hardest bit. But then it was just a case of starting to filter teams through for the bottom up. So if you had let's just say you had an under 14s and an under 12s and stuff like that, didn't worry too much about filling in the gaps there. It was about catching the bottom part and working way up. So once they filtered through, then we had a pathway all the way back down and stuff like that. So it was, that was a lot of people that done that, and it's still a lot of the same people. Angie Campbell, she's incredible in what she does, and she's got the wee 2019. She's helping out there and stuff like that. So it's the best part of 30 years in this community helping this club. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's what's good about the people on board with the club. It's not just Dane coaching. It's all the admin stuff. Working behind the kitchen. Dane, the wee groups and stuff like that. There's so much that roles that one person can take on, and there's no complaints about doing that.
Aye.
Apart from this, I don't know what to do. I was hoping he was watching, but no, there's multiple roles that everybody does. Do you know what I mean?
Aye, and it's a small band, and you keep having to try and get more and more out. But hopefully, with the initiatives that we've got going on at the club, with everything that Trevor's doing in the community, with the dementia groups, with the women's yoga, and all these, we've got the addiction groups and stuff like that. People can see what we are all about. We're not just a football club. We're here for a community, and we want to be part of the community, but we want you to be part of our club as well. And that's the bit for me that if I could wave a magic wand and stuff like that, it would have more people involved for the community and our club. Not just about the club putting on stuff for the community. I would love more people to come and get involved and bring their expertise and stuff like that. It's there's people out there that do things that we need, and they would be a great asset to the club and to the community. So get involved.
Definitely.
What gives young players the best chance of making the step up to senior football? We've talked about the pathway and stuff like that clear pathway, but is there anything else that kind of really stands out to give them that chance? I
think, it's back to the stuff you were talking about earlier. It's about, have you got that talent, have you got the ambition, have you got the willingness and the dedication? It's a tough gig now because of the levels have changed in terms of, the division that the first team are in now and stuff like that. It's a real tough gig. You've got to go and make real commitments to try and make that step up. So, this year for our under-20s, we've had, 7-8 boys go up at different times, and, a couple of them, Alfie and Jamie have get man of the match performances and stuff like that. So, for me, that's a great moment for us as a club, because we've got talent that can go and step up into that first team, if you like. That doesn't come easy. That comes for the boys. They've already put in 12 years of hard graft. They're ambitious, they come to training, they listen, they take on information, they lead. Both Jamie is obviously the captain, Alfie's part of the leadership group as well. They're guys that are switched on, and there's loads more in that team that have got a chance, and it's down to them no, nothing I'm doing. It's, you know, the football that they've got in them now, I can maybe help them in wee areas and, you know, make sure that the environment's right, they're playing in the right position, in the right sort of formation and stuff like that to give them the best chance to succeed. But ultimately it'll be down to them.
Yeah. Do you remember the day when the sort of 3G was first put down in the pavilion or the fences, like basically just creating what the stadium is now? Do you remember that?
Mate, I walked it every night. I used to go in for my work and go down and walk round about it. I remember, you know, being in the changing rooms and stuff like that when it was just brick walls on the outside. I used to take pictures and I used to go and, you know, we moved the old stand across for the old pitch into the Purdy Worldwide and stuff like that. I used to sit there and it was mounds of mud that they had brought for, I think it was King George's Park. See when they were sand slitting it, they were bringing all the soil because you know that the 3G was laid as a grass park first, and we're meant to only get a 7-a-side 3G on the middle pitch, and the kind of mud or the dirt for underneath, it was just so clay that it wouldn't drain. So we were getting games off, brand new facility, amazing grass pitch, and the games were off because we used to allow Livingston Football Club, their reserves would play at Blackburn on a Monday night on the grass pitch as well, and it was just killing it. It was killing it, and so we had to go back and say, listen,
this isn't working.
This isn't good for us. Like, we need, because at that point we had nowhere to train. Do you know what I mean? There was nowhere to train, so we had to go back and say, like, we need to change. Can we get more money to invest into a 3G here? And luckily, because they knew what we were doing, and we had great guys at the SFA at the time that was working. We was two David Drummond, and David, I can't remember his surname. Anyway, they were fantastic, and they were coming to meetings to the council with us in Sport Scotland and saying these guys need a full size 3G. So when we got that was a great moment. Do you know what I mean? That was a pinnacle for us.
Aye.
Do you know what I mean? That was like a full transformation for, you know, we can take this club on now.
Because I think at the time, I'm not too sure on the history, but we would have either us or Broxburn would have been the first teams in West Lothian to have that.
Aye, I think Broxburn were probably ahead of us at the time. I think they would have been in, but in terms of the people we were dealing with, obviously could see how passionate we were about it, and that's why they wanted to support us, and ultimately that's what got us through it. Do you know what I mean? The council were on board, SFA were on board, and Sport Scotland were on board, and it was just a case of, you know, trying to pull it all together, and which, you know, we eventually done. And so, you know, what you see was probably on the back of 10 years work prior to that. You know, when we had an old ash pitch, we had 2 changing rooms. I used to go down and open the changing room at the ash pitch on a Sunday morning, and if it had been raining, I was sweeping the water out, and if it was really bad, it would sit in the back dressing room like that deep, so you could only use the front 2 dressing rooms and stuff like that. We had portable goals that were in a shutter. We had to pull the portable goals out and go and set them up on the grass pitch, and it was nothing like what people have got now. So, you know, we've been through the good and the bad and stuff like that, or the bad and the good now, and it's always about just trying to keep improving what we've got, and we've done that with the wee stands and stuff like that and everything as well, and the way the facility looks at the moment, I think it's the best in the county. It's
by a mile.
It's the best wee football and sort of arena, do you know what I mean? I love it, it's great.
Aye, it's good that you still get loads of, you know, even the parents and stuff that come to watch the games and stuff. They're going, I think these are amazing, these facilities.
We played Spartans on Friday night, and I seen they tweeted in that about what a great facility and stuff like that. But you know, that was a model for us with Spartans.
Yeah.
You know, we looked at Spartans, and obviously Broxburn were ahead of us and stuff like that as well. And the investment that they've had through there, at Broxburn's incredible. But so you always look out to see, you know, how they've done things and stuff like that. But I mean, Spartans is incredible for what they've done in their area and stuff like that. But well financed.
Aye. What comes down to money these days, unfortunately. So under 20s.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a wee bit about them. What have you enjoyed most about working with the under 20s?
Great bunch of boys, amazing bunch of boys. To be honest, this year's been my most enjoyable for the last few. To be honest, don't need to deal with parents. It's just
kind of that age.
That's it, and you're ultimately try to deal with young
men.
Yeah, young men, but young first team players. Really, that's how I look at them. Right? Are you good enough to step up into that next, or make that next step? And that's really, that's how we treat them. But listen, I've coached a few of them early years, or I've coached against them, so I knew the majority of them, and then we brought in 3 or 4 who we wanted to bring in as well, who were younger as well again, and who I'd maybe had worked with, but I was well aware they'd played against us and stuff like that. And honestly, their camaraderie today, and I should just say it, we had Tommy Norris's funeral day, which is Alfie's granddad, who was a great man, and he was my coach at under 21s at Strathbrook. And Alfie's been fantastic since he joined. I think I brought him to the club when he was about 11 or 12 or something like that. He's been here 7 or 8 years, and I played with his dad. His granddad coached me and stuff like that. And so it was Tommy's funeral the day, and there was about a dozen boys there. Bookie was there, Brian was there. It was great support, and that's what it's all about for me, and it goes a long way, that type of thing. So they're a great bunch, and I really enjoy working with them, and they're talented. They're talented, so it makes it that wee bit easier as well.
And when the opportunity came about to take the team, do you think you just did it because it made sense? You're at the last sort of year or two at 18s, they're transitioning. Is that kind of why you've taken it on as well?
Aye, of course it was. Well, aye. Listen, there was a change going to happen anyway, with sort of Richie and that going back to just playing and stuff, and I felt it was the right time for me just to kind of took the 2008 since I were in the soccer school, so I think I'd still had 3 or 4 players there, and I thought, right, if they can manage another season, then hopefully some of them can progress this year up. And it was the right time for me, and obviously to take Connor with me as well, to move on and look to push the 20s on a wee bit and try and bridge the gap between the first team and the 20s, to try and get players who can go in and not just be part of the squad, but I want them to go and actually cement their position in the first team. So it's and there's certainly a few of them that could do that, but it was the right timing for me, I think.
Oh, definitely.
What do you think's the biggest difference between coaching like modern players now and players for your generation?
I think, like, guys when I played, I think they sort of knew the game a bit better. Like, I'm surprised as well now, still at 20s, when I'm having to coach specific things into players in certain positions and certain moments and stuff like that. So I think back in the day, guys knew the game and knew how to play and where to be, and it was, training wasn't nothing like when I trained, when I played, it was, a couple of passing drills or something like that in games of football you played. It wasn't loads of 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3, all that sort of stuff, or other, breaking down parts of the game and stuff like that. It was just, get to training, do a wee bit of fitness or a wee bit of passing and stuff like that, and then you would play a game. So I think like they get so much more now, but still a wee bit naive at times, and so I think that would probably be one of the...
You can blame the digital world, I think, for that.
Aye, I'm not sure. I think the game's changed so differently now, do you know what I mean? There's so many different types of formations. I think we just used to play 4-4-2 and that was it. And you would smash it to your strikers and go for there. So
Aye.
it's a wee bit different now.
Just pure Sean Dyche football.
Aye, it was.
Aye, just proper football back in the day. But what do you sort of demand for your Twitty side every week? You know, every manager's got their sort of bit like principles and like non-negotiables. What are yours?
I think we have to work harder than the opposition is the first one, and I'll be honest with them, they've done that all season. I think there's the effort levels and the commitment that they bring is great. There's one or two, and they know who I'm talking about, that could do a wee bit more and can be a wee bit more committed. But I certainly, I think that's first and foremost. Now, you know, we'll talk a wee bit about specific things in specific games, but ultimately I'll say, look, your ability will take you through. Do you know what I mean? They're good players, they're quality players, and you know, when you see them in full flow, it's great to see it. It's really good.
Definitely.
Is there anybody that you're, I don't know what your name is, but like, is there anybody particularly proud of that you've went, you know, I coached him and then you saw them playing, you know, proper pro?
Oh, aye, man, there's you know, guys like Mackenzie Kirk who got a £500,000 move for St Johnstone to Portsmouth. Like, you know, I love that. That's what I've done it for.
Aye,
I wanted to just to try and see somebody get in a first team somewhere, play. There's Xander McAllister, who's been on the bench all season at Motherwell. He's only 18-year-old. Do you know what I mean? There was
Alistair.
Aye, Ali Burns, and you know, at Hibs, and then there was guys for the kind of 2003 age group. You know, I lost something like 20 players to pro clubs back then for that age group, and the first rung like Mackenzie and guys like Jaden Fairley, who plays at Armadale and stuff like that. Jaden scored 30 yarders for Scotland under 16s and stuff like that, and you know, I'm thinking, right, these are the boys this is what it's all been about. Like, I wanted guys for this community and run about, you know, to go and be football players, and so a few of them sort of fell at the final hurdle, but there's a few out there that have done all right at it, and Mackenzie's probably the one up there that's done the best at it. Obviously his brother plays at with the first team, Corey. But aye, listen, that's what it's all about. There was loads of good players who, you know, went on. I think the last season I finished with the 03s when we were going for sort of 7s to 11s at the time. There was no 9s then either. I think like 10 out of the 12 that I had left all signed with Livingston. Right. So I lost the full squad. So that age group, or that team, there was a kind of second team that they still went, but my team sort of folded.
And was
sorry, our last game was so I was trying to keep them, and our last game was we played Hutchie Vale up on the middle pitch, the grass pitch, and we battered them 5-1, and I'm saying to the boys, just stay, we'll have a 1 year and then you can go to Livingston, but you'll probably get better offers. And one by one on the Friday night, the parents started to, listen, thanks for everything, but we're going to Livingston. One guy phoned me, my mate Shorty, phoned me to say, listen, I've tried to talk him out of this, and I says, don't. I've had about 6 texts, it's done, just go.
Aye, there's too many of them.
Aye, so.
That must be so bittersweet though, like you're losing a squad, but they're also getting their own chance, but...
that's what I always done it for, was to try and push the boys onto the level that they could play at.
Their full potential.
And I didn't think like Livingston was the right sort of environment at the time for them, because it wasn't run very well at the time and stuff like that, and I just thought, listen, have one more year at 11-a-sides and you're going to be a top. We played in the Edinburgh League, and you know, you'll be a good side, you'll be challenging and you'll get a lot of attention. And I think that was probably the bit that a lot of the parents chose wrong at that point in time. But listen, that was what it was. You know, I was all right with it. you know, my son had went a year early, and that was down to me and him falling out all the time, and I'm like, so I was like, you go a year early. He was desperate to come back away.
Right.
He wanted to come back and play at Blackburn again. You know, they travels up to Elgin, down to Queen of the South, across to Morton and stuff like that. It's not great.
No, it's difficult.
Aye, it's
Definitely.
not great.
You've got
So
games in air, and do you know what I mean?
oh,
Things
aye,
like that.
so
Difficult, but see when you first got involved with the sort of more political side of the club, trying to build, you know, the pathway and the, you know, the wee stadium that we've got just now, was that sort of the goal, was to have boys like on such a platform that they can go and achieve those things?
aye, it was always about that. And it was always about building the club into being one of the best in the region, you know, not just about in West Lothian, about the South East region. We you know, we weren't just trying to like sort of be a medium level club. We wanted to have the best facilities, we wanted to have the best teams, and ultimately, you know, our goal one day was, you know, to have the senior team in a top league, a women's team in the top league, and, you know, all our teams competing. Now you get that at different clubs or at different levels. So Euro 9s, for instance, have done fantastic. First team to go and bring that Scottish Cup back, and that was a big moment for us. And I says that to Trevor at the time, do you know what I mean? This has been years in the making. You know, me and Jim Johnston and Martin and Connor and stuff like that were sitting at the game, and I was so proud of that sort of moment of them winning that Scottish Cup, because that's what it's all about. It's about trying to take the club to the highest level possible. You want to take players to the highest level, but we want to take the club to the highest level that it can be. So, you know, it's about networking, you know, getting the right people involved, trying to build on any success that we have, and, you know, keep improving. And listen, people will want to help you if you're doing the right things. And I think that's why, you know, we're so well received, because people see that we try and do the right things in the club.
Yeah. We're all singing off the same hymn sheet, with the same goal in mind.
Aye.
For sure. So what are the biggest opportunities for the club over the next few years that you see?
Well, listen, there's a you know, a plan for us to, you know, our biggest ambition would obviously be getting the first team as high up the, you know, the pyramid as possible and stuff like that. And listen, that's a massive ask for a wee club like ours and stuff like that, when you see how long it's taken the likes of Broxburn and stuff to get to the levels, Bonnyrigg, Edinburgh Cities and all these different teams, and that's the pinnacle for us, is to get as high as possible, you know, and emulate some of these clubs. You know, you've still got giants like Linlithgow Rose and that on your doorstep, and, you know, I still think that there's real ambition for us to go and push that first team on, but it's about improving the club and the infrastructure in the club, and, you know, getting another 3G pitch and taking it on a level again, and, you know, building that girls section up, which we're doing again and stuff like that, after, you know, it was decimated with Livingston and the people that you know, organised that behind the scenes and stuff like that. So it's great the work that's gone back on in the girls section to build that back up, and, you know, the likes of Sonia and Lynn and all their coaches and that, they should be applauded, because they're doing a great job. So for us, it's you know, we just want to get as many teams. We want the 20s to be challenging for leagues and trophies, and, you know, players going into the first team and stuff like that. We want, you know, the Blair Floods of the world, when they're good enough and, you know, if they're ready, then can they go and make that jump straight into the first team and stuff like that. Ultimately, that's what we're here for. Yeah. You know, we played Spartans the other night there, and they had, you know, top side, great side, but they had boys just back out of Hearts and stuff like that. They had 09s playing and stuff like that, and they were top level. And their ambition will be to go and play in a Spartans first team and stuff like that, and we're no different. We want our players to play in our first team, and it's about, can we do that and supplement it with, you know, players for the academy, if you like, but then also bringing in that experience and quality to push us up to the next level.
And do you think we can? Because you look at Spartans, you go back 10 years, you put them up there, like your Hutchies and your Last Raid, and now Spartans are like a sort of League Two club. So how can we get there?
Well, listen, it's a massive ask in terms of the finance that's required for that. But it's step by step. We didn't have what we've got without, fighting tooth and nail for it. We've had to fight a long way. If you look at, clubs run about, they're maybe looking now and trying to start the journey that we started, 20 years ago or whatever it is. There's teams out there that are just starting that journey. But ultimately it's about investment in the infrastructure and investment in that first team. Can you go and drive it on? Then you hope to take the rest of the club with you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good. What's one thing that annoys you most on a football pitch?
Tiny shin pads and socks down round about your ankles or socks up above your knees. Outrageous. I would ban it.
So that leads me on to my next question. Do you think football, the standards have slipped in football compared to back in the day?
No, because listen, it's different, and it's all part of the Premier League and stuff like that you see in the telly and the kids. I mean, I seen something the other day, a tweet, and it was about the most. You've got kids at soccer sevens and stuff like that, putting a hand up to take a corner and that, and it's like, man, you've no idea what you're doing that for, or they'll score a goal and they point to the sky and all that, and they don't. Aye, it's just so there's listen, the telly's got a lot to do with it and stuff like that. So for me, it's aye.
It gives them a dream though.
It is what it is. I'm just Alden Crabbit. That's it.
Now we need to get into a few stories as well. Is it true that after a Motorola day and nighter at the Twig, you got knocked down crossing the road?
Aye.
Care to enlighten us on this?
Finished a night shift, and it was a Christmas day out. And so you just went home for a night shift, got showered and that, and went straight to like the Twig. And I think it was probably about maybe 8-9 o'clock at night, and I was at the taxi rank and then fancied a Chinese, so just walked across the road and got whacked with a motor. Not my best moment, eh? Gave my ma a lot of stress.
That's the real injury story.
Aye, so no ideal why.
But you weren't injured severely, obviously.
I was hospitalised and I cracked the windscreen with the back of my head, and the next day is funny, so I've kind of woke up in the hospital and I'm like, so I phones my mate who wasn't at the night out, Big Billy, and I'm like, mate, I've been knocked down and that, I'm in the hospital, I've got to sign myself out, can you come and get me? And he's like, alright mate, no bother, I'll be there now. So about an hour passed or something like that, he still wasn't there. So like you have to go out, and you'd no mobile phones or nothing, eh? It was like using the front desk, so I knew his phone number half by heart. So I phoned the house again for him, and he's eventually answered the phone. I'm like, mate, you know left yet? I'm like, I'm at the hospital. He's like, oh right, I'll be down now for you. So he comes down to get me. He says he'd been night shift and all, and he thought it was all a dream, him answering the phone and that, and I just fell asleep again, and so he'd left me hanging there for a while. So I never got home to my own house about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and my ma gave me a bit of a hard time for that one.
Unbelievable, man. Well, we've also heard of a certain incident with the Whitburn fans, if you can dive into that.
I'm not sure what that one is, mate.
Did you really smash the ball out the park about 5 yards away from them and nearly take one of them out?
Oh, that was kind of my trademark back in the day. I had that. I done that a few times. Pennycook was the best for me because it's got like a wee shed like ours, and getting pelters and the game had actually, one of the games at Pennycook had actually erupted into a brawl. I think there was more than 30 boys on the pitch all fighting and stuff like that, right? That was how sort of tough it was back then. So I think it was the next time we were there, and if I was coming a ball in behind the full back, I would just come across the pitch, and if I was clearing it, I made sure I rattled it into the stand, and it was just bouncing about and stuff like that. So one fan took exception to it when I was walking off at half time. It was you went through a gate, so they pulled the gate, and that was like against the stand, and then you would walk by it and the boy leaned out and try to punch me in the side of the head as I was coming up. But I probably had rattled him with the ball, so I deserved it.
And there's also a Blackpool story from somebody's stag do. Is it true you had to pay a taxi driver a full night's takings? I
did you know who for though, eh?
Would this perhaps be a Mr. Wallace?
That was for a Mr. Wallace, aye. Good, I just hope I hope it wasn't because it was me. It was we'd been out obviously in a stag, and we were drinking on the bus on the way down, and then we were sitting in a pub, and a few of us says, "You want to go to the Blackpool game?" So we jumped in a taxi. Young Gavin at the time couldn't handle. Well, he can't handle his bevy still, to be fair to him. But he was sick in the taxi, so I just emptied his wallet and gave it to the taxi driver.
That's your cleaning fee.
I had to go to I chapped a woman's door to get a cloth and all that to try and clean it all out as best as I could and all, and he was sitting on the curbside, so that was a good old days.
So you were teetotal from that moment on now?
Well, I was teetotal for the next 90 minutes because you couldn't get a pint in the ground, but after, I think we actually left early. It was probably about 60 minutes to be fair.
And they call you Brian the Deliverer?
Aye.
Where did that come from?
Well, I delivered my youngest boy on the stairs in the house.
Really?
Aye, so that was my...
I was expecting like a corner or a free kick there.
Nah, I never got that far up the park. That was once I hit about 22 or something like that. But no, Evan was born in the house on the stairs in the house on a stormy January morning, and I just had to muck in and then call the ambulance.
Just mentality and that, eh?
If somebody had asked you to do something like that and said you've got to do this in an hour's time, you'd have collapsed, eh? But when it happens in the moment, you just have to do that.
That's brilliant. So when you look back across your whole time at Blackburn United, what are you kind of proudest of? The whole setup?
Listen, definitely. It's what we've got for, or where we were and where we are and where we hope to go. It's, the story's not finished yet. There's
there's still lots to write.
There's a lot more in the pipeline, but listen, this village, it doesn't have its trials to sort of seek and stuff like that. There's not a lot happening in it, and if we can give the young kids a focus and a facility that they'll be proud of, because they don't damage it, they respect it, they look after it, and that, and that's what it's all about for me. It's about giving them that wee bit of legacy that they were part of that, and when they're older, they might be in my shoes coaching their kids and grandkids and stuff like that. It's, it's great because you see boys for different age groups everywhere, that you've coached or they've been part of a team here and stuff like that, and they know you and you know them, and that's what it's all about. It's a footballing community that we've got in Blackburn, and by the way, that's been there for as far as I can remember. The players that have came out of this place have been frightening, and the teams that have came out of this place have been frightening. Ultimately now it's a wee bit more difficult to be successful at that top end because other teams, have a lot more money and resources than we do, but we just keep pushing and be the best version of us, to be honest.
And that's it. And finally, last question for you is, what would you say to someone who's maybe unsure about getting involved?
Listen, what could possibly go wrong? You could be here for another 30 years.
Aye.
Just come and do it. Like you've got another 30 year in you.
At least.
I hope so.
So, nah, listen, anybody, listen, it's a great community. We've got great people. You get all the help that, you need to, be successful as you possibly can. If the club support you in everything that you do in terms of the resources that we give you. We fund coaching courses. We've got subscriptions to stuff like the coaching manual and stuff like that. If you're not a coach, you can be a secretary, you can be a volunteer, you can be a first aider. It doesn't matter what part you play, you'll still be, part of this club. And I think it's, there's clubs all over the country that pride themselves on being that inclusive way and bringing people in who might not have, other things going on in their life, and we're certainly one of them. We want to, reach out to every part of the community that we live in and make it better. And I think that, if you've got something to offer the club, we'll certainly embrace that, and, you're more than welcome to come down and have a chat and take it from there, to be honest.
Brilliant. No, definitely.
Perfect. No, that's a really good way to end on that, Brian. Thanks very much for coming on. Really appreciate your time.
Listen,
it's been excellent.
Thanks for having us, and it's hopefully the club go on and have a successful year, and we can celebrate when everything's done and dusted, and first team with promotion, and maybe the 20s successful as well, and some of the youth teams in the same way. So aye.
Look forward to seeing you on the celebration night.
Aye, cheers.
Definitely. Well, cheers, Brian.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.